Time to go inside the NFC West. Cardinals now have some company with the Seattle Seahawks losing to the Saints 33-27. New Orleans scored touchdowns on offense, defense, and special teams. And this one kind of got sideways. The Seahawks did rally late, but unfortunately they came up short, and now they'll be 2-1. Heading to State Farm Stadium this Sunday.
Yeah, and then, Russell Wilson, he still hasn't thrown an interception, 7 over 0 when it comes to interceptions. Obviously, they're going to rely on Chris Carson. It's the first time we're going to see Clowney in a Seahawks uniform. And give the Saints credit because everyone was wondering how they were going to play without Drew Brees, Teddy Bridgewater. That was a good win for them. I'm surprised because Seattle usually plays really well at home, and now they're going to be fired up to come to the desert.
Well, this was Seattle's first home loss in the month of September under head coach Pete Carroll. They had been 15-0 in the first month of the season.
Well, it's a tough place to play. It's a long travel usually for any team. Cincinnati would go there in week 1. New Orleans, those are not short flights. And then, the crowd gets into it. And Russell Wilson, this guy is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. And they don't have Doug Baldwin anymore, but Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett's the go-to guy. And then you're starting to see DK Metcalf, who everyone thought he was a one-trick pony. He's become a better route runner. So, believe it or not, the Seahawks are more known about their offense than they are their defense, and you couldn't make that case when they went to 2 Super Bowls.
Well, Lockett on Sunday, 11 catches for 154 yards and a score. You brought up Russell Wilson. He accounted for 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 rushing, had over 400 yards through the air, but had 50 attempts as well. That was a career high.
Yeah, and they're one of the teams like the Ravens, at least last year, where they're really balanced. Seattle actually ran the ball 51% of the time and threw it 49%. You don't see the balance like that. Usually it's 55-45. So that tells me that they were coming from behind and they had to get some splash plays, but that's not the recipe for them to win. It's running the football, play action, and then trying to force some turnovers on defense.
Again, the Seahawks 2-1. They play at State Farm Stadium on Sunday. The 49ers still undefeated, 3-0. They beat the Steelers 24-20. Jimmy Garoppolo with a 5-yard touchdown pass to Dante Pettis with 1:15 remaining. 49ers win despite 5 turnovers. And quoting Richard Sherman after the ball game, "We didn't play perfect today, but our record is perfect."
Hey, it's all. I was curious to see how Mason Rudolph was going to go up there and play, and obviously some of these young quarterbacks had to go on the road for their first game. But San Francisco, with Garoppolo at the helm, it's not going to be perfect, but you could see that there's a reason why they went out there and spent big money on him. There's a lot of motion. There's a lot of misdirection plays. Kyle Shanahan calls a good game, and if they can get something for their defense now. They have a bye week. I'm sure they prefer to have more momentum going in, but we don't face those guys for a while. But it'd be interesting to see where they are at the halfway point because everyone talks about the Seahawks and Rams. Here come the Niners.
Yeah, first time in 21 years that they are off to a 3-0 start, and they have another running back. Jeff Wilson Jr. had 2 touchdown runs. They just crank them out like a factory. One guy goes down and they pick up someone off the street or off the practice squad or find someone on the roster to carry the football. It's amazing. And I'm not just talking about this season. It was all of last year as well. Someone would get hurt and they just plug in someone else.
Yeah, it was Matt Breida. Jarrett McKinnon can't stay healthy, but they've had – and they went out and got Coleman, right, Tevin Coleman.
Yeah.
So we'll see about his availability. But that tells me that they're committed to the run, but also they can plug and play a guy based on their offensive line. Now, they missed Joe Staley for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you mentioned that they are off this week. They will play the Browns on Monday Night Football, October 7th. The other team, the Rams, they are 3-0. They won in Cleveland on Sunday Night Football 20-13. This one was close, but John Johnson picked off Baker Mayfield in the end zone on 4th and goal to preserve the victory. The Rams had to rally for 10 points in the fourth quarter just to come away with the win, but a good win in hostile territory.
Yeah, big turnover by Jared Goff late in the game, and you normally don't see that because they're usually winning or they're obviously running the football. Aaron Donald's a beast. Now the Browns had a chance at the very end, and obviously it didn't work out 4th down for them, but it looks like they were able to kind of key on Baker Mayfield and Wade Phillips in that defense area, put pressure on him. He looked confused. It looked like he was making one read, and then he was trying to improvise on the outside. And in that offense under Freddie Kitchens, but give the Rams a lot of credit. Going on the road, they were fired up. They haven't played on Sunday Night Football forever. That's a quality win for the Rams.
Well, and they're getting healthier, too. Cooper Kupp looks like he is all the way back from his offseason, or I should say late last season knee surgery. 2 touchdown passes, including what proved to be the game winner, finished with a career-high 11 catches for 102 yards.
Do you see that touchdown he had last week? Like
no.
he bulldozed like 5 guys.
Yeah, he's back.
Do you think he's a number 1 wide receiver? Is he a 2 because they got some speed on the outside?
You know what? It's probably like a Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk. You can't go wrong either way. And both are, talking about Brandon Cooks, both are extremely important for the Rams offense.
I sound like his agent. I mean, he puts up number 1 wide receiver numbers, though. But in that offense, he's got a great role because they can spin it down the field with some of their speed guys, the tight end, the running backs. He's in a perfect offense. I think he's a really good player, very underrated.
Yeah, Rams 3-0. They host the Buccaneers in Week 4, and they've won the last 5 matchups with Tampa Bay. And that is a look at the rest of the NFC West, our weekly look to see how the rest of the division fared, and that was Week 3.
Hey Cardinals fans, hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, be sure to tune in every Monday morning right here on our YouTube channel at 10 a.m. where we dish it out on the Morning Scramble.
Speaking of Sunday's game, it is time now for our weekly look at the opponents. It is Opposing Views presented by State Farm as we put the spotlight on the Seattle Seahawks, a team that is coming off its first loss of the season. They lost to the Drew Brees-less New Orleans Saints on Sunday, 33-27, but 2-1, and looking very good, although the entire division right now is looking very good.
Yeah, and the Niners are on a bye this week. We know the Rams were able to, go to Cleveland and beat the Browns, and then you throw in the Seahawks here, and like I said earlier, I think we could have 2 teams make the postseason, and who knows are those? You got to figure Seattle and the Rams are the favorites, and we'll see if the Niners can continue, but. Again, they're relying on that offense, and they got enough players on defense, especially that front 7, where they can put pressure on the quarterback. I wonder if they'll put a spy on Murray.
The question, okay, if they do, would it be Bobby Wagner?
I don't think
or if he does.
Maybe it's KJ Wright, more fluid. Wagner's obviously not coming off the field, and then you got Kendricks out there. He's kind of a bigger linebacker, but I would think you want to have a guy that's fast enough. Now, it all sounds good in theory, but by doing that, you're taking a guy out of coverage, and that could help the Cardinals in the long run.
With regards to that Seahawks defense, they are 16th against the pass, 4th against the run, so pay attention to that if the Cardinals are able to get their ground game going on Sunday. But Jadeveon Clowney, new addition to that Seahawks defense, Ziggy Ansah as well. He played his first game last week, so now game 2 for those 2 together. Neither one was able to do much in last week's contest against the Saints. In fact, no sacks, 2 quarterback hits. Head coach Pete Carroll called it basically almost like a preseason game specifically for Ansah since it was his first action. But that's 2 bookends for Seattle that the Cardinals tackles now, DJ Humphries, and maybe that's Mills or Murray on the right side that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where you got to protect the edges in the air raid offense because, we watched it. If they feel like Kyler Murray's going to, throw a ball, they're going to put their hands up. We didn't see any batted balls down last week, maybe even the last couple of weeks. And that's
it was just week 1.
Yeah, week 1, and that's encouraging. But, yeah, you're going to have to protect. And, one thing that they've made it very clear, they don't want Clowney dropping back in coverage. Now, Clowney did draw 2 offensive tackle holding penalties. So if you're going to get beat, you might as well try to grab the guy because you don't want your quarterback to get hit. But I do think we're going to have our work cut out. And then the interior, that's where Bobby Wagner makes a ton of plays. I mean, he's kind of like Luke Kuechly, and we can even put Jordan Hicks in there, where at the end of the game, he's going to have double digits in tackles.
Offensively, the Seahawks scoring just over 25 points a game, 10th best pass offense, 15th best rush offense, but you're looking at the head of the snake is Russell Wilson, and against the Saints, he had over 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 rushing, so there's that dual threat, and he might be being asked to do a little bit more, especially in the ground game, because right now that Seattle rushing attack, which they've been known for over several years, in fact, since Pete Carroll got there, they still kind of trying to figure things out at the running back position.
Yeah, it just seems like they can't stay healthy. You know, obviously, you know, you look at Rashad Penny, and then you throw in Chris Carson, and then C.J. Prosise. He's more of a kind of a third down back. But clearly, when they lost Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett is the go-to guy, and so he really looks for him, and he can do a lot of things. He plays well on special teams. They'll line him up in the slot. They'll put him on the outside. So I don't want to say they replaced Doug Baldwin, but Tyler Lockett's definitely getting his targets and touches.
Yeah, he was basically, punt, kick returner. Now all of a sudden he's the focal point of that offense with regard to the wide receivers. He had 11 catches against the Saints.
Yeah, and that's one of those matchups where you're not going to shut anybody down. You just hope to contain them. And, if we can get a pass rush, maybe Wilson will throw a ball, because he does take some chances sometimes. And like Kyler, he'll float it up there and hoping his receiver can go for those 50-50 balls.
DK Metcalf and David Moore, the two other wide receivers worth noting here with the Seahawks. Of course, Metcalf, the second-round draft pick, and Moore made his season debut last week. He had a shoulder injury right before week 1, so they're starting to kind of get their pieces back together. Don't forget former Cardinal Jerron Brown as well. He's getting some reps, so there's actually more weapons wide receiver-wise than right now at the tailback position.
Yeah, and DJ Metcalf, obviously he's a physical freak when you see him with his shirt off, and Pete Carroll actually took his shirt off during their NFL Combine interview with him. That wasn't a pretty sight. But he was more known as a one-trick pony. He only can run the post or maybe throw the ball down the field. But now he's become a better route runner. He's coming back to the ball, and you could see that him and Russell Wilson spent a lot of time after practice just working on route running, because he's going to get off press coverage just because of his physical attributes. But now it's about coming back to the ball and then winning those 50-50 balls. So I think, for the future, I think he'll get better, but you got to have weapons around him. And when you get a guy like Tyler Lockett, it's going to open things up for that second and third receiver.
All right, another weapon, because it's the talking point of the season so far with regards to this Cardinals defense, and that is the tight end, Will Disley. He's got 3 touchdowns this season.
Yeah.
Not a household name, but so far this season, the Cardinals have made tight ends household names.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. Now, as you pointed out, between Mark Andrews and T.J. Hawkinson, they really didn't show anything. Now, Andrews was dealing with an injury. We know what happened last week with Greg Olsen. I mean, I think they want to be in manageable third downs, like 3rd and 4 or short, where it's not a passing down. But you're going to have to put a hat on, because they have so many weapons, and we know Wilson can extend plays with his legs down the field. He'll run if he has to, but you got to put a hat on. But hopefully it's not, after the game we're talking about a guy getting 7 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. If that's going to be the case, it'll be more Tyler Lockett than anybody else.
Bottom line, though, it all comes back to Russell Wilson, what he can do with his arm and what he can do with his legs. And, of course, the Cardinals have seen a lot of that. Seahawks have won 3 of the last 4 meetings. In fact, they are unbeaten in their last 6 trips to State Farm Stadium. Can't say undefeated because there was that tie, but they certainly like coming to Arizona.
And Pete Carroll said that they didn't recover from that game like we did. And he said it took them about 2 weeks just to
talking about the tie.
Yeah, the physicality in that game. And he said that obviously you don't want to have a tie, but obviously it's better than a loss. But he said it took their team about 2 weeks just to recover from that game, the physicality, and that's something we need to see. If this game's going to be won by the Cardinals, it's going to be won in the trenches.
It is the 41st meeting between these two teams in the NFC West as we take a look at opposing views here on Cards Cover 2, all presented by State Farm.